A $1 billion flood recovery package has been announced. Let's get straight to it with my colleague Andrew Clennell, our political editor. Maybe a bit late for some people, Andrew, but there will be additional emergency payments made to those in the Ballina and Tweed area as well.
Yes, and I think this is critical. Should have happened last week. It's happening now, which kind of shows you it should have happened last week, doesn't it? But better late than never, and it's only a week's difference. So it's going to be for the... Linda Reynolds has put out a statement. It will be disaster recovery payments for Ballina, Byron, Kyogle and Tweed local government areas. They'll have the same. It's $1,000 for adults and $400 for children. The same as Scott Morrison announced in Lismore last Wednesday. Look, on top of this, I don't know if Bridget McKenzie's making an alternative announcement with the New South Wales Government or Scott Morrison is. But we understand there's also a package of $10,000 payments to help you return to your home, $5,000 for renters, $5,000 for landlords. That's not part of this statement from the Government Services Minister, Linda Reynolds. Scott Morrison, after a leak out of the New South Wales Government last night, was forced to say, look, this hasn't been delayed by a couple of days because we were waiting for my return from Perth before it was announced.
Not at all. It was late not last night, but the night before, and over the course of that evening, that the request had come through from the New South Wales Government. The National Security Committee of Cabinet met for several hours yesterday. I was here in Perth and was at that meeting, as was the Attorney General. And in working through the proposal that came forward, we've been able to finalise some arrangements today, and the Minister for Emergency Management and Disaster Resilience will be making announcements further on those issues later today.
Look, normally this is something the Prime Minister would announce. I wouldn't be surprised if he was hoping to wait a day till he returns to announce it or to go to the flood zones again, and we might see him there. Personally, once it leaked out, I would have announced it in Perth myself. I mean, what's wrong with that? It's a big announcement and the Prime Minister should take credit for it. Murray Watt, well, he's the Labor Emergency Management spokesman. He spent quite a bit of time in Lismore. He's been asking for this because the National seat of Page got the payments. The Labor seat next door, Richmond, didn't. And obviously we've had a number of ministers like David Littleproud saying that's because Lismore looks like Cyclone Tracy, Ballina looks like conventional flood damage, doesn't really matter to the locals up there. So Murray Watt's saying it should have happened earlier.
Well, I certainly hope that is right, Kieran, but I think the question is why it's taken so long. Why was it that Scott Morrison was in a position nearly a week ago when he arrived in Lismore to announce additional support for some of those communities, $3,000 per adult who've been affected, but people in other areas, particularly Labor-held seats, have had to wait. And we still don't know whether there's going to be any extra assistance provided to flood victims in my home state of Queensland who have suffered immense damage as well. So I think it's really unclear why it is that we only ever seem to be able to get ministers to announce disaster assistance when they're actually on the ground with TV cameras on them.
And here, I believe, is the statement from Linda Reynolds, Government Services Minister, where she says there'll be this next phase of support includes an additional two weekly disaster payments for affected residents in Ballina, Byron, Kyogle and Tweed that'll be automatically paid to those who have already claimed and received the Australian Government disaster recovery payment. So there you go, Kieran.